miss it in the future. So this is Hugh Daniels. I'm the current president of the Utah Emergency Management Association. And this is one of our webinar series that we do throughout the year. And today we're talking about Citizen Corps, why it matters in emergency management. And our presenter is going to be James Wright from the Utah Division of Emergency Management. So if you'd be kind enough to mute your phone so we don't have a lot of background information or occasionally music playing in the background, we would appreciate that. And then if you need to ask a question or respond to something that James has to say, if you just take it off mute, do that, and then put it back again, it would be greatly appreciated. The recording will eventually, in the next couple of months, be in the new UEMA website, where we're developing an archive of not only all of our webinars, but all of our conferences and everything else that we're in the process of doing and adding to our resource database. So with that, I pass it over to James.
Welcome for all those who are here, and I'm excited to be able to talk to you today. And feel free at any time to pipe up with any questions and things while we go through this material. And so the topic is about Citizen Corps, and I'm going to be describing a little bit of the structure, the benefits of it, how it works, and just some of the methodology as well as the practicality of actually using it at the local level for all of the emergency managers, and the reason why emergency managers should utilize Citizen Corps within their areas. So hopefully everybody can see my screen okay. I just want to touch base to a topic that emergency management has been going through an evolutionary stage, and it used to be that responders and things would be the expected people to come save you and such like that, but we're seeing that emergency management is going to a community-based emergency management. And that's the basis of why Citizen Corps is so important. So, here's this quote that it's really good for everybody to understand, that we have to move from a government-based response to a community-based response. Another statistic that is good to know is that in 95% of all emergencies, the victim or bystander is the one that's there first on scene. So they're the ones providing the immediate assistance, which kind of goes to say is the reason why it's so important for individuals to be empowered to act and act safely and appropriately. And that's another reason for Citizen Corps. Does somebody have their microphone on? I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Mike Levitt, current governor, as well as other governors and other people, have all voiced the same opinion concerning our preparation and the need to understand that the government can't save us. They can't be the proverbial cavalry coming over the hill to save us, but we need to be able to be self-sustainable. The message has constantly been at least 3 days or longer. But Mike Levitt said that any community that fails to prepare with the idea that somehow the federal government will be able to rescue them will be tragically wrong. Our former Lieutenant Governor Greg Bell said this, and I absolutely agree. The best service there is neighbors, helping neighbors. And Amanda Ripley, who was a New York Times reporter, she wrote this book called The Unthinkable. And this was a quote that she said that I think really hits home. These days, we tend to think of disasters as acts of God and government. Regular people only feature into the equations as victims, which is a shame, because regular people are the most important people at a disaster scene every time. Having said that, I want to give you a brief history of Citizen Corps from kind of the starting points to where we're at today. But if you go back to 1918, there was a big Spanish flu pandemic that killed nearly 50 million people worldwide. This nearly crushed the medical system, causing people to wonder, we don't have enough nurses, we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough medically trained professionals to be able to handle everything that needs to happen. Having that case study under their belt, later on, that eventually led to the creation of the Medical Reserve Corps in 2002. Another event that helped lead to the creation of Neighborhood Watch is in the 1960s, there was the rape and murder of Kitty Giovanosi in Queens, New York. And what had happened is there were multiple people standing all around witnessing this horrific scene going on around them. And nobody stood in and tried to stop anything that was happening. So this kind of floored a lot of people in thinking, why aren't we being a society that can feel empowered to actually step in and stop something from happening rather than just standing by? And it showed a need to be able to empower community members in some of the basic neighborhood watch principles, and keeping an eye out for each other and knowing best practices for keeping each other safe as well as our own neighborhoods. So in 1972, Neighborhood Watch started by the National Sheriff's Association. A little later on down the road, in 1985, there was the big Mexico City earthquake. It was the 8.1 magnitude quake, which led the LA Fire Department to create the CERT program. What they noticed with this Mexico City earthquake is that regular people were jumping in to pull brakes off of other people, jumping into dangerous circumstances, and it didn't matter what was going on. That was their family member, that was their friend, that was somebody they knew or even didn't know, but they had regular people helping out and trying to make a difference in the situation that had just happened to them. Now, CERT didn't really get up off the ground until about 1987. There was the Whittier Narrows earthquake in California. And that's when they said, this really needs to happen. And so then things just started to fly with CERT. CERT stands for Community Emergency Response Teams. It wasn't until about 1993 where CERT actually became part of the national picture. So FEMA adopted CERT into the national framework. In 2001, we're all familiar with the 9/11 attacks that happened on the Twin Towers. Shortly thereafter was the anthrax letters in the same year. And the same common picture was prevalent in the fact that it's common people, it's the citizens that are there, it's those good-willed, good-natured individuals that step in to try to make a difference. Volunteers come. I mean, whether you want them or not, they'll be there, and it's because they do care. And so it was in 2002, Citizen Corps was created to kind of help take all of these different programs together to give us some direction to empower at the local level, at the community level, clear down to individuals and families, to offer the training, to offer the volunteer service opportunities, to offer the education needed to empower the locals to help themselves. That same year in 2002, Medical Reserve Corps and the Volunteers and Police Services program was created, and then it wasn't until a couple of years later that Fire Corps actually came into the picture. So, but ever since its launch, Citizen Corps has become a nationwide program, and we'll see this in the upcoming slides. Now, the mission of Citizen Corps is to harness the power of every individual And there's three things that they focus on. It's education, training, volunteer service to make the community safer, stronger, better prepared to respond to the threats of terrorism, crime, public health issues, and disasters of all kinds. Just recently, our FEMA Region 8 Citizen Corps coordinator, Dan Nyquist, said the following. He said, of all of the Citizen Corps programs in America, Utah does it the best. And that's a proud moment for Utah. Utah is the #1 volunteer state in the USA, and so since Citizen Corps is very much a volunteer program, it really does make sense. And Citizen Corps is the Federal Emergency Management Agency's grassroots strategy. What they're trying to do is bring together the government and the community leaders to involve citizens in any kind of all hazards, preparedness effort to create resilience within communities. Citizen Corps partner programs share the common goal of helping communities prevent, prepare for, and respond to emergencies of all kinds. Now I just want to show you really quick as to what it looks like from the national level. You have the Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Health and Human Services. So the Department of Justice actually houses the VIPS program and the National Neighborhood Watch program at the national level. Department of Homeland Security houses Fire Corps as well as CERT, and then the Department of Health and Human Services houses the Medical Reserve Corps. That's at the national level, and then it comes down to the state level, and this is kind of where we are here in the state. We have about 74 registered Citizen Corps councils in the state of Utah, so, and that number is continuing to grow. Here in our office with the Division of Emergency Management, we house the Citizen Corps program here, and it's under the Be Ready Utah campaign. So Be Ready Utah is all about preparing our families, our schools, our businesses, and our communities. And there's the fourfold mission which we try to get everybody in the state of Utah to do, and that's to be informed, to make a plan, get a kit, and get involved. Well, Citizen Corps is that get involved section. It's also a very big contributor to the community side of things as well. And there's something really interesting that we see consistently, not only in the state of Utah, but nationwide. Anybody who gets involved also tends to be the individual that gets a kit. They make plans, and they get in, and they're informed. They get the education. Anytime a community adopts a Citizen Corps program, those programs likewise feed straight back into the families, the schools, and the businesses. And so Citizen Corps is proven to be a very valuable component in the emergency management world in promoting the preparedness principles and building resilient communities. These are some of the statistics here in the state of Utah that we have. So we have 74 registered Citizen Corps councils, and Citizen Corps is made up of each of these 5 pillar programs. So we have 43 registered volunteers in police services, and I did a little bit of math, as you can see, about what the potential is, because there's a max amount of space that we can actually take here in the state, and that's how many registrations we have versus how many programs are left to be registered, at least potentially. And likewise, like with each of these, and it's in correspondence with each of the cities, the municipalities within the state of Utah. Also, based on the value of a volunteer hour, I was able to drum up some numbers in regards to some of the volunteer hours that were given in 2011. And so these are the websites for each of those. But you can see with all of the volunteers that we have in each of the programs, our CERT program has the largest number of volunteers. However, our Medical Reserve Corps program currently is the most organized and most deployable program. And so they credential their volunteers, and they're covered within each of the health departments throughout the state of Utah, which helps cover the entire state. So those are just some numbers for you. I'm going to go into just a few specifics about each of the pillar programs, and I want to talk further into detail about Citizen Corps and how it works. So CERT, the mission of CERT is to educate people, to reduce the hazards, to respond to the immediate needs of families and communities brought by disasters. They can also respond as a team to help do the greatest good for the greatest number of people. And well, one huge component is that they are a support to the local emergency responders. They're there to be a support role. And so this right here is a list of common CERT activities that CERT programs throughout the state could potentially do, and there's more. There's a lot more things that they could do. Medical Reserve Corps, their mission is to engage volunteers to strengthen the public health and emergency response and community resiliency. And so they do a lot with the emergency preparedness world, but more specifically with public health. And that's how we look in the state of Utah. That's how it's separated out. And then nationwide, you can kind of see a picture of what we look like nationwide with Medical Reserve Corps programs. Now, some of the things that Medical Reserve Corps does today is volunteer training, education outreach. They help eliminate health disparities. They improve public health preparedness. They fill in at local hospitals, especially when the doctors and nurses can be overwhelmed post-disaster. They become a great asset to the local health facilities. They can also assist neighbors at the local shelters and help out with the American Red Cross and provide first aid to those injured in disasters. And so they can work right alongside CERT programs and CERT volunteers. So anybody can volunteer. You don't have to have a medical background in order to volunteer within Medical Reserve Corps. Because even those who don't have a medical background have a place, a direction. You can help out with the phones and the paperwork and a whole bunch of other things. And so any of the non-professional medical needs, anybody can help out with. So volunteers and police services, their mission is to assist citizens in supporting the efforts of their state and local law enforcement agencies. And they kind of help with the initiatives in terms of crime and terrorism and such. So you can see the map of what VIPS looks like on the national level as well. And we have a number of registered VIPS programs here in the state of Utah. This is proven over and over to be a valuable resource for local law enforcement agencies to utilize volunteers, community members to help them with tasks, especially on the side of when departments are downsizing and there's not a lot of funds. Oftentimes your volunteers actually can help out with a lot of things, especially when people are wearing too many hats of responsibility. Some possible volunteers and police services activities. These are some of the things that they can do: crime prevention, officer training, victim advocacy, database management, traffic and crowd control, emergency support. So VIPS can be a very valuable resource if utilized appropriately. Now, Neighborhood Watch, their mission is to educate neighbors in crime-reducing strategies. They want to empower community members to immediately report all suspicious activities to their local law enforcement agencies. Now, we don't want Neighborhood Watch people necessarily to take things into their own hands, but they are the eyes and ears for local areas when police officers and such can't be everywhere. So here are some possible activities for Neighborhood Watch programs to engage in as well. And a lot of it is around training and getting people together and sharing best practices for protecting the home and the family and participating in kind of crime prevention efforts. Fire Corps their mission is to bring community members into local fire and emergency service departments to assist them with non-emergency tasks. Now, sometimes fire departments will utilize fire corps members to help out with firefighter rehab, to help the local firefighters, especially when they're fighting so hard and trying to do as much as they can. They'll get tired and need support. So here are some activities that your fire corps members can actually be involved in. So education outreach is a big one. Here in the state of Utah, we have the Layton Fire Department that utilizes fire corps, and they actually utilize their youth to go around and go to other elementary schools throughout Layton and teach other, so it's youth teaching other youth about fire prevention strategies and what you should do in an emergency and whatnot, which is really great. Now, this is the basic model for a Citizen Corps Council. You look at everybody that's sitting around the table, and the strategy is that they're there to help with planning and capacity building, outreach and education, training and exercises, volunteer programs, and surge support. Those are some things that Citizen Corps, a council, can actually be useful for. And you'll notice the people sitting around the table, and each of the pillar programs that we've got that we just went through are also sitting around this table. And so that's in some of those neighborhood groups and associations and the VOADs, volunteer organizations, active in disasters. Being able to bring all of these people together is indeed an emergency manager's mission. Getting people to work together and communicate, collaborate, share resources and information. And that's what a Citizen Corps little round table is all about. So that's the basic model. We want people all coming together at the same table and talking about what we're going to do as a community. Now, some of the structure, the practical application for emergency managers, and to understand kind of how this works a little bit. So the state of Utah has the State Citizen Corps Council. And the State Citizen Corps Council comprises of each of the pillar programs and representatives from each of the Homeland Security regions throughout the state of Utah. But really where this starts is at the local level. Each city has their pillar programs. Each city that has anything going on has a coordinator or a leader for that pillar program. And the vision is this, that those individuals would come together at a county council and talk together. That way all of the municipalities that have programs that are running and operating will be able to actually come to a county council and communicate. So what you would do is have a city council first, and then a representative from the city would actually go to a county council comprising of each of the local municipalities. And that way each of the cities kind of have a voice and are able to share what they have and their knowledge and their resources. Likewise, the county level, a region is created of multiple counties. And so the vision is to have one or two representatives from each of the county councils that were formed to designate somebody to sit at the regional level. And so then they create a regional council where they can talk together between counties and what resources and activities and trainings and education opportunities are going on. And then one regional representative from each of those regional Citizen Corps councils would then sit at the State Citizen Corps Council level. So that's basically how it works. Very simple, but trying to get everybody together may not always be so simple. But where we need the biggest support from is right down at the local level, getting emergency managers in each of the pillar programs to communicate, collaborate, and then send somebody up to a county level council. And if your county doesn't have one, please go to the county and ask for one, and see who could potentially house a county council for you guys to collaborate together. This creates a wonderful chain and information flow for support and resources both up and down. And we can share with each other best practices and all sorts of things. This is what it looks like here in the state. This is a diagram of the State Citizen Corps Council and kind of how it kind of flows down to each of the regions and counties and the cities, as well as flows back up from city to county to region to state. And so anytime there's somebody in need, anytime that there's questions to be asked, we can go through this to gain support from our neighbors and then up and down the chain. And then you can see each of the regional areas throughout the state of Utah and kind of how it's created. So why have county and regional councils? Some of this has been stated already, but multi-jurisdictional support. I mean, you got a support system there when you're talking together. There's the sharing of best practices and resources that come as a part of this. Oftentimes, one local program can't get enough people to their training, and so what they do is they team up with their neighbors and say, hey, let's do a training together, thus allowing training to continue to happen, but making it so that you can get the biggest bang for your buck in the amount of time needed to deliver those trainings. Also, it allows everyone to get a voice for any of the provided funds, clear up to the regional level where they can actually decide at the regional level how funds are spent. And so if these county councils and regional councils don't exist, then there's no voice for the local municipalities to have. So this structure also gives opportunity to keep volunteers involved and engaged, primarily because other places are doing other things and you might be able to invite your neighbors over. But also there's leadership opportunities and other opportunities to get involved with. And also this multi-level cooperation helps fulfill grant requirements for a lot of the EMPG grant and the Homeland Security grants and things like that. When you're working together, multiple municipalities can knock out one single requirement with one hit. And so a lot of great reasons why this needs to exist. So the responsibilities of citizen court councils aren't limited to these, and depending on the jurisdiction they can decide this is what we would like to do, but here are some ideas. They're there to help educate the public, kind of do public outreach efforts, and help the citizens take an active role in protecting themselves from harm. They're there to kind of spearhead efforts to offer citizens new and existing volunteer opportunities. There's educational information and training courses and things to address any of the all hazards throughout the state. They also help promote any of the programs and activities across the community, and they help capture and innovate practices, any innovative practices, and report accomplishments that can be replicated in other communities. So oftentimes this is where best practices sharing of information can happen, because one program is struggling and they can help share information, and the other program will be like, yeah, this is great, and would really make a big difference for them. Also to help survey their communities and figure out, as well as be a support for the emergency manager, is what does the community need? What would the community like? Such, and so giving a great voice for each of the municipalities. Here are some resources that are available to all emergency managers statewide. There's the National Citizen Corps webpage, and then we also have a webpage for Citizen Corps at the state level, and you can see both of those URLs there. Visit those. We try to keep those updated and more information as it comes out. On a regular basis, I try to send out an email with a document that has attached to it lots and lots of resources that come from local as well as national levels. And so great opportunities to be involved with. And I'll send that through the email listserv. Now this listserv is also a valuable tool for local programs to utilize, because any pillar program can shoot out a question to everybody on the listserv and say, hey, how have you done such and such? And then that email will go out to everybody, and then people can just respond directly back to that individual and say, this is what I've done. And it becomes a great collaborative tool. There's a couple of social media sites that you can be a part of as well and follow. Utah Citizen Corps has their own Facebook as well as Twitter pages. There are some display boxes that were created for each of the counties for local municipalities to utilize. And so it has tablecloth, banners, handout materials, and brochures and things like that, so that cities can request it from the county and say, hey, I would love to use a display box. Now there's one for each of the pillar programs. So there's a display box for CERT, a separate display box for volunteers and police services, one for neighborhood watch, one for fire corps. Medical Reserve Corps holds the display boxes at the health department level. And so if you contact your Medical Reserve Corps coordinator for each of the health departments, they're the ones who hold the Medical Reserve Corps display box. We've also got a couple of extras at the state level so that you can utilize those boxes if you need to, if one's not available. And then one of the best resources, in my opinion, is the fact that there's county and regional and state citizen corps councils, and that those councils can offer support and solutions and ideas and things like that. And so you have a good support system that way. Now, in the emergency management world, there's four things that come up consistently that keep people from being a part of Citizen Corps or adopting any of the programs. And those big four are liability, the finances, the time needed, as well as the perception of need for it. And I want to just speak to that quickly. So anytime that there's liability in the picture, there's three things that you can do that helps keep liability away from being a big issue. As long as you, as the emergency manager, create policies and procedures in place that says this is what our code of conduct is, this is what the expectations are, and these are the activities that our volunteers are going to be involved in. Those policies and procedures will be there to help protect you and such. So the other part is training, making sure that it's consistent and standardized, and that when somebody is teaching or giving any of the trainings, that that they're being consistent with the national training that they are teaching to the book, instead of going off on their own side of things. So making sure that training is consistent, especially with the CERT program, one way to mitigate that is to make sure that your trainers attend a CERT, a state-sponsored CERT Train the Trainer course. And so one of the third thing is record keeping, and just make sure you keep accurate and complete records of those that have gone through the training and some of the inventory things and the activities that you've done. And then by so doing, your records, your policies, and your standardized training will help keep you away from any volunteer liability issues. Those are the three best practices. Put those into place, and liability actually then becomes the proverbial monster under the bed. It's not really there, just as long as you're doing those parts. These are some resources to consider in your efforts to learn more about volunteer liability. And one of the greatest guides I could point you to is the Citizen Corps Volunteer Liability Guide, the first one right on the top. There's a lot of other things out there to kind of help you get a good picture of how things would work, and if there's any situations that you might foresee happening, you could go there and think and say, okay, if this were to happen, I understand what's going on. Oftentimes, any action that a Citizen Corps of any pillar program volunteer does falls back on their own shoulders in terms of their own actions, and then doesn't doesn't impact your office, doesn't impact your position as well as the city and such. So by utilizing those best practices, you save yourself from liability concerns. The finances is something that's brought up consistently, and any of the Citizen Corps programs should not be financially exhaustive. In fact, every single one of the Citizen Corps programs are built or should be built in a way where they become self-sustaining. And there's some good best practices out there for doing that, and it's also something that helps engage the volunteers and get the community out there to make a difference. And the communities that put these into practice find themselves thriving a lot more and having a much livelier program. So here's some ideas. You could use some of the in-house resources that are offered by the sponsoring entity for any of the pillar programs. They have things that you can use that you can tap into. When you're using instructors, to save on some money, don't use instructors that are going to cost. I mean, it's a volunteer program. Have them, those that are willing to teach for free, have them teach. So use your volunteers as instructors. Use donated facilities instead of facilities that you may have to pay for training spaces. Seek donations from the local businesses. This gets your volunteers out into the community and building those networks and reaching out. Those local businesses have supplies and food and advertisement opportunities and things where you can do printing at and all such, saving a lot on the municipal dollars. Anytime that you have needed projects going on, offer it up to the for Eagle Scouts in the Boy Scouts to utilize those opportunities as projects. They could be a driver in helping some of those projects come about. Oftentimes with the class and trainings, there's materials that are needed, and so sometimes offering a small fee for the cost of the classroom materials and equipment is necessary. And in many cases, oftentimes a good idea where it helps commit the individual to be there. There's other funding sources that you can go to carve out money for your programs as needed through the EMPG grants and the Homeland Security grants. There's other ways to go about it as well, becoming a 501c3 status. However, there are some drawbacks from that, because if your program doesn't gain about $5,000 a year annually, there's fees and things like that, so it may not be useful per se to be a 501c3 status if you're not bringing in money from donations and things like that consistently. Each jurisdiction also has their tax identification number, and oftentimes as an emergency manager you can work with that tax identification number to get donations to that carved out for your programs. Another way around that as well is to work with an exterior 501c3 program that is willing to sponsor or help your program out. And so donations could be given to that 501c3, and then they may be willing to give a portion of those funds for your program. So those are some ways to go around that. Anytime we utilize Citizen Corps pillar programs, we find that there is a huge return on investment. One of the principles in emergency management is recovery, and the quicker that we can recover, the less number of dollars will actually be spent. And so Citizen Corps, since it empowers people at the local level, actually causes a huge effect on communities to rebound much faster, saving thousands and millions of dollars. We understand the insurance point of view, and preparation is insurance to us. Preparation is mitigation, and every single time that we spend money on mitigation, there's about a $4 return to every dollar spent on mitigation. Something we see consistently nationwide is that we're all doing more with less. We have less money, less people, kind of things like that. And so oftentimes, while departments are being downsized, while budgets are being cut, and hats of responsibility are being passed around to the remaining few, a great answer to this problem is utilizing our volunteers within the community. Granted, it's utilizing a vetted process so that you gain volunteers that you trust to help you out in what's going on, and they can help you with activities and events and things like that, wherein before you would have utilized some of your full-time staff to do those and such. Now, the financial dollar value of a volunteer hour in the state of Utah is $22.65, and that can actually be reflected back onto any reporting that you do for activities and things like that going on, especially when you're submitting for reimbursement, especially post-disaster events. And while you can see when volunteers offer their time and donated, there's a dollar value attached to that that should go in a great reporting thing. So the FEMA's public assistance program, anytime a disaster happens, this is something that's extremely important for post-disaster reporting. And a lot of the volunteer hour totals, the total dollar value, could actually count towards the 25% that you would be required to come up with in order for FEMA to take up the rest of the 75% of the cost of any disaster that may happen locally. So keeping good records of who came, how much time that they spent can be a very valuable tool to you to save your municipality a lot of money, especially post-disaster. So that's a couple of points. Oftentimes, we as emergency managers struggle to take on even just one more ounce of responsibility because we already have too many hats. This is us, and there's good reason for this to be this case. We don't have a lot of time. We have too many other hats of responsibility, and so volunteers in any of the Citizen Corps programs could be a great asset for us to delegate to. As we delegate responsibilities to them, that lessens the load on our own shoulders. And so the other fact is this: you pick your battles on terms of what's really going to happen. What kind of a society do we want to build? Do we want the post-Katrina kind of society where everybody is reaching out for come save me kind of world, versus a society of individuals that can do it, that can really make the difference, and can handle things and can rebound on their own rather than looking to somebody to come save them. Citizen Corps does that. And think of, what do you have time for in the long run? And over again it comes back to this. This is what we have time for, that we can do as society, because that inevitably will save us a lot of grief in the times to come. So empowering the locals is extremely important. In your EMPG grants, there's 5 performance standards. These are the 5 performance standards. And it's important to note that Citizen Corps, in all of its functions, help fulfill elements of each of the 5 performance standards for the grants, because they help out with training exercises, they help out with planning efforts, they help out with professional development things and collaborating and partnerships, and as well with the community preparedness and outreach efforts. Citizen Corps is a great asset to make that happen. Another reason why Citizen Corps is important and very valuable to us is that it is a force multiplier. It saves municipal dollars. Individuals can act as a team and perform assigned functions. This becomes an extra arm for you to promote preparedness at the community level, down to the families and individuals. This ultimately does create self-sustaining, resilient communities, and creates a well-trained, better informed, better prepared community that they can take care of themselves and others during any time disasters strike. And this reflects down to the professional responders as well, because then it allows the professional responders to focus on their most critical needs. So this is also great PR for you. This is where you really get down into the community and make friends with the community members and make a good reflection on what your municipality does for our taxpayers. Year-round, you got year-round support through volunteer programs. Any time of year, anything that's going on, you build a cadre of individuals that can really help you. And then this ultimately does really help individuals become more community involved. Civic involvement really goes up. Oftentimes there's a lot of us that may say, no, we're going to be fine, we can handle it, we've got the infrastructure necessary, but over and over again we see that that's not the case, and we can't rely on that statement. Any disaster you go through, any case study you pick up reflects the fact that no, we can't do it on our own. And any time that we empower community members, we always see positive outcomes in terms of supporting our professional responders. So, and also there's this fact that volunteers will come whether or not you want them. These are people who live in your communities and they have families and friends that are there, and anytime something happens, people are going to come out of the woodwork. And so being able to create a structure and an environment for them to fit into and to become a help, it become an answer to the problem rather than becoming a part of the problem. That's one reason why initiating Citizen Corps programs is so important. I went through this little exercise and found out if we got at least one person per household trained and involved in any of the pillar programs, that it has a huge impact on the response efforts within a local municipality. At any given moment in a good location, we have about one emergency responder per every 1,000 people. And so when we get people trained, that gives that mathematical ratio over a 200% improvement, where now you got about one first responder per every 5 people. And so that's just with some general rough numbers based on the population in the state and the number of households that are here. Suffice it to say, it's up to us as emergency managers whether or not these programs will become initiated and how well they will work together, and we want them to come together and communicate with each of us as emergency managers. But I like the quote of Dr. Seuss that said that unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. With that, do I have any questions? Right now it's about 1:02.
Well done, James.
Thank you. And again, this will be posted online in the near future. So hopefully we'll be able to go back and review. as well. And this may be a good resource to utilize in sharing to people at your own areas.